Hi, my name is Jace Wynn. This is Abby Jervis, and we are sophomores in the Adobe Digital Media Academy. For our project this year, we had the opportunity to work with Mr. Pulaski, a world history teacher here at Middle Creek, who over the past few years has created multiple simulations through Google Spreadsheets to give students an interactive learning experience. His company, 1347 Games, consists of 6 simulations that span multiple different eras in human history, where students can explore the inner workings of government, social structure, and war. Mr. Pulaski has been developing these ideas for many years now and has made something that is unlike anything else in the industry. When we first met with Mr. Pulaski, he had informed us that he had been in contact with Epic Games to have this developed in a digital format, where it can be used by students and teachers around the world. He had recently applied for an Epic Mega Grant, a program that aids software developers in creating games. As it stands, all the games are still in development and are all in need of concept art so that Mr. Pulaski can formally pitch the idea to Epic and move it into the production phase. That's where we come in.
Our class was split into 6 teams, each tasked with designing artwork for each of the different simulations. We created graphical icons for food, money, and buttons used to start wars and upgrade properties. This process began by deciding on a font choice and creating a color palette that was used for all of the maps. Designers then created a template using Adobe Illustrator. Once territories were made, each team added color from the palette to add visual interest and give a similar feel to all 6 maps. Finally, designers then added their textures and labeled all territories. We would now like to call up the group that worked on Simulation 1.
Hello everyone, my name is Evelyn Hackney, and I'm the project manager for Simulation 1, Feudal Fates. These are my teammates, Davis Murr, Cameron Alba, Jameson Harward, and Cardi Wilson. The simulation that we created artwork for is a currency-based strategy game set in medieval times around the year 1000. The goal of Feudal Fates is to endure the challenges of the feudal system and win by having the most gold. The game consists of many counties throughout medieval Europe, namely in the UK, each with 4 variables: food, gold, population, and fortification, with levels that can fluctuate as time passes. Players can trade with neighboring counties, upgrade their defenses, and expand their economy. We had the privilege of creating different icons, logos, and map designs for this simulation. We decided that the icons would be made using only line art, since the games are still in the concept stage. This way, as we move forward, adjustments can be easily made.
I was responsible for creating a few map icons, the name for our simulation, and this logo for it. After looking at our teammates' designs, it was decided that we would move forward with mine, because it represented how the feudal system's classes tied into the feudal pyramid best. The feudal pyramid is the most commonly used visual to show how the feudal system's social classes work, with monarchs at the top and peasants at the bottom. And since your fate is decided by a warrior born within the system, I came up with the name Feudal Fates.
I was given the task of designing the map. Simulation 1 was based in the United Kingdom during medieval times. Each county was given certain levels in population, food, town level, and defense. This was to ensure the game was divvied up sufficiently. And this was our final design.
I was responsible for creating multiple icons that represent the various aspects of the simulation. I started by creating one of the most important ones, the town level icon. Players can use town level to upgrade their wealth and their food production. The icon itself starts as a simple medieval house, but over time, as they upgrade their town level, it becomes a large building with more windows, walls, and fortifications. Using a blank soldier character as a base, I created a medieval knight that players can hire and train in the simulation. Along with creating these icons, I helped my team to create a consistent art style that will be used throughout every icon in this presentation.
I helped to create some of my team's icons, including fortification level, population level, and the Duchess icon. I used my sketches as well as my teammates' sketches to design a strong base for all of our icons. Here in the middle of the screen, you can see the fortification levels. I start with a simple castle that is easily noticeable and progressively upgrade it to make it appear stronger in the end. In the top left, you can see the population and Duchess icon. I use simple line art to make these easily noticeable as well. We would now like to pass it off to the team who worked on Simulation 2.
Hi, I'm Sarah First, and I'm the project manager for Simulation 2, The Warring States. These are my teammates, Sadie Burris, Sebastian LaRoche, and Hudson Emig. The Warring States is a game of diplomatic strategy and political development focusing on the Islamic expansion during the 13 and 1400s. Each individual is assigned a province that provides a certain amount of gold, which can be used to buy soldiers, prestige, upgrade your territory, or even trade with other players. Because resources may be lost due to conflict, players have the option to create alliances with each other in order to keep the peace and protect their property.
For our simulations logo, our team first started with a basic sketch or idea. We then met and discussed our options together. After some consideration, we decided to move forward with the logo sketch that I created. As you can see, I created soldiers to represent battle. I also created the flag symbol in the back to represent the Islamic expansion. After finishing my sketch, I recreated it in Adobe Illustrator. We encountered a multitude of problems throughout the design process though. For example, sometimes my logo's stroke weight would be too inconsistent, or my logo would be too complicated. In the end, we finalized this design.
To create our map, we first tried to use the image trace tool, but there were too many errors, such as blurred lines and very little distinction between land and water. Instead, we decided to trace every state and body of water by hand using the pen tool. Once we were happy with the outline of each state, we separated them into different colored territories. Finally, we labeled each state and add statistics to show their gold and their prestige.
Here are all the icons we created for the simulation. The icons are split into 3 categories. Some of them are resources, like gold, prestige, or soldiers, which could be collected or bought each turn. They'll also have Roman numerals by them to represent their quantity. The other types of icons are buttons and achievements. Buttons are the actions, like form or break alliance, and achievements each have different effects, such as added attack or defense during battles. Battles occur when 2 players try to settle the same province. And achievements can be gained by either allying with or conquering a group of provinces that made up an empire in the 1300s, such as the Ottoman Empire. Altogether, 14 icons were created for the simulation.
We would now like to hand it off to Simulation 3.
Hello, my name is Noah Horn, and I'm the project manager for Simulation 3, Edge of the World. I'm joined by Asita Lakshminarayanan, Sebastian Candiotti, and Tyler Clark. We were tasked with creating many different in-game items and icons, as well as a map for the game to be played on. The game is based on a historically accurate trip from Europe to the New World with elements of trade and survival. Each round, players will start with a set amount of money to stock their ship with supplies, as well as hire a crew to go to and from the New World. The goal of the game is to finish with the most amount of gold, which can be obtained by trading in the Caribbean Sea. Each round, your crew will consume food and water from your limited storage. The morale of your crew directly affects the speed of your boat, as the higher your morale, the faster you will go, and vice versa.
I was in charge of creating the logo for the simulation. This was the overall representation of the specific game. First, all the group members started to sketch possible designs to represent a ship which was most suitable for our simulation. Then, we voted amongst ourselves and chose my design as our final draft. Then using Adobe Illustrator, I made my sketch into a template and started outlining all the aspects of my design using the pen tool. Then I added the most suitable colors, an orange and yellow gradient background to represent the sun and blue waves to represent water. After everything was complete, we made sure Mr. Pulaski liked our design. I made all the requested changes and the design was finalized and approved.
I created the map for the simulation. In order for the game to function, a map is required to show where the player is and the different locations that the player can go. To start, I used the textbook map given to us by Mr. Pulaski as a template. I then outlined and colored all the different regions on the map and added a parchment effect to the map using textured images. After this, I labeled all the required locations and added the respective flag to each colony on the map, as well as a key.
I helped create the 41 different icons for our simulation. I began by researching what each item looked like during the 1500s, and then created my own simplified version in Adobe Illustrator. After creating each icon, I ran them by Mr. Pulaski and made any wanted changes. To create the morale icons, I created emojis with expressions to easily convey how the group feel. In the game, there are 3 levels of morale the group can have, so I created high, medium, and low morale icons.
As you can see, some of the icons needed for our simulation are not easy to depict using line art. For example, the indigo, the molasses, and the tobacco were pretty challenging, but after many revisions, we finalized the designs that looked most suitable.
Edge of the World has 41 total icons, the most of any simulation. Due to this entire slide is made up of work from other groups. They are all simple concepts for people, such as a doctor in the top left and crewmates in the middle row. We ran into the problem of having varying styles for characters, but in the end, we settled for this design for characters with jobs and this for warriors, which was used throughout the rest of the project.
Aside from the map, I also designed icons for ships that players can control in the game. I created one icon for each country a player can represent and added the corresponding flag to each ship, making sure to use accurate flags based on the time period. I kept the designs of the ships simplistic and bold so that they could be recognized at a small scale. We will now hand it off to Simulation 4.
Hi, my name is Ryan Ward, and I'm the project manager for Simulation 4 at LIBERTADOR. These are my teammates, Caden Robinson, Daniel Boddicker, and Abby Jervis. Our team was tasked with creating the game's assets, including the pie charts, icon, and the map. The goal of our simulation is to liberate the provinces and form the free state of Grand Colombia within the span of 20 in-game years. This simulation immerses the player in the politically and socially complex world of Latin America during the Age of Revolutions.
Here are some of the logo sketches designed by each group member. After some close consideration, we decided to go with this one that I made. When designing our logo, I started by placing the Spanish and the Grand Colombian flag on either side to show the 2 countries involved in the game. The fist is used to show revolution and is placed intentionally in the middle to show the division between the 2 countries. Next, I added in arrows from the Grand Colombian flag clenched in the fist to show their rebellion. Finally, I added a flame on the wrist to show the intensity of the game.
I was responsible for creating the icons used in our simulation. I created a Spanish soldier, which you can see in the top left, a Colombian soldier, which you can see in the middle left, and a coin that was used by all the other groups. To make the soldiers, I used the base made by Sadie and customized the different weapons and armor to symbolize the different soldiers. Once my designs were approved, I sent them to the other groups to be used. Using Adobe Illustrator, Ryan and I created 34 different pie charts that are used to show the country's population demographic and the political diversity in the state of Gran Colombia.
I was responsible for creating the map for this simulation. I began by taking the map given to me by Mr. Pulaski, creating an outline. Then, I created a color template for all map designers, using natural warm tones to emphasize the objects on the board. After, I colored in each region with colors from my template. Finally, I added 2 common textures used on all maps to create a realistic feel. This map is a central part of the simulation, and it is crucial to accurately portray the mood of this time period.
We would now like to pass it on to Simulation 5.
Hi, my name is Trevor Thompson, and I'm the project manager for Simulation 5, the Mad Scramble. These are my teammates Stone Hill, Cameron Hall, and Meredith Sineker.
The simulation that we created artwork for requires players to fight amongst themselves while teaching about planning, logistics, prioritizing objectives and diplomacy. Next, and they're also going to be doing other things.
I was responsible for creating the final logo for our group. I wanted to incorporate the idea of European nations taking control of Africa and Asia for resources. After some brainstorming, our group decided to go with this for a final logo, with hands reaching towards these regions in an attempt to take control.
For our simulation, we had to create 12 icons that were each different kinds of materials. All of these icons were designed in Adobe Illustrator. One difficulty we faced was finding inspiration for the more complex icons like indigo and making sure each icon was neat and realistic.
I was responsible for creating several icons for our group, including gold, coal, uranium, and several others. I was also in charge of creating a few icons for other groups. One difficulty that we faced while doing this was finding inspiration for what those materials looked like in that time period and translating that into simplistic icons.
I was responsible for making icons for other groups, as well as helping Caden Robinson from Simulation 4 from the color palette for all map designers.
The map for our simulation was a group effort. I started out by creating the outlines for Africa, then I passed it on to Trevor for touch-ups before sending it to Cameron to color. During this time, Trevor began creating the outlines for Asia.
While this was happening, Stone began working on the map key as well as placing the icons around the map. Finally, I colored Asia, combined the two maps, and applied the textures. We would now like to pass it off to Simulation 6.
Hi, my name is Jace Wynn, and I'm the project manager for Simulation 6, Diplomacy. Here are my teammates, Sienna Lewis, Aiden Hafler, and James Cesar. The simulation that we created artwork for takes place all over the world in a more modern setting. Each player takes control of one of the top 32 countries by GDP, and each has their own separate goal. In the game, players must complete their goal the easiest way possible without starting a war. We worked for over 2 class periods for 3 weeks to create icons, a map, and a logo for our simulation. Each team member was tasked with making possible logo sketches, and we decided to go forward with mine. As you can see, I wanted to make sure that the world was a central focus. After talking with Mr. Pulaski about what he liked best, we decided to go with this as our final design. As you can see, I wanted to make sure that the world was a central focus by putting it in the center. I then added olive tree branches to the sides to represent the United Nations.
I was responsible for creating the icons for our simulation along with James and Jace. The icons we created are natural resources, industry points, technology points, handheld and nuclear weapons, modern-day money, and a few more seen there.
We faced 2 main obstacles while creating our icons. Since our simulation was the newest and had never been played before, we had a very vague idea of how our icons should look. The second obstacle we faced was the icons needed to be really simple in order to be visible at any scale and not be mixed up with other icons.
We brainstormed designs, ran them by Mr. Petty and Miss Williams, and then drew them out in Adobe Illustrator using the pen tool. Then we got them approved by Mr. Pulaski, made any needed revisions, and finalized the icons.
I was tasked with making the map with Jace. Our map was very difficult since we had to trace out the entire world. After that was done, I labeled all the countries and capitals. I then added custom texture with graphic styles to make the map look more natural. We would now like to pass it over to Cardi and Evelyn.
1347 Games was in need of a company logo and avatars to represent players. I was responsible for mapping out, managing, and making these avatar designs diverse and customizable. As soon as possible, I started to sketch out a variety of culturally inclusive hairstyles, clothes, faces, and more. In order to produce these ideas on Illustrator, I needed a helping hand. I couldn't have done it all without Evelyn, Sadie, and Sienna.
I was one of the designers for the avatars and their accessories. My teammates and I used some of Cardi's sketches, as well as our own ideas, to create the different designs.
Additionally, I sketched 3 different logo ideas for the business, as you can see here. After receiving feedback from our client, it was decided that this would be the new 1347 Games logo. I'd now like to pass it over to Sarah and Ryan to wrap things up.
We are so thankful to have been able to create concept art for 1347 Games and are excited to see this company grow. We are confident that Epic Games will see the value for 1347 Games in the educational market and will award the grant to fund its development. We would like to thank Mr. Pulaski for being so open-minded, giving us full creative freedom, and first off, entrusting us with this project. This was an incredible opportunity and we couldn't be more grateful.
We would also like to thank our Academy Coordinator, our teachers, and our administrators for helping us so much throughout this project. Finally, we would like to thank all of you, our audience, for joining us here today, and we would now like to open the floor for any questions.